And I guess that is the one thing I do agree with many of you about, who have scolded me for being overly, downtrodden, I guess, when talking about the chances that this gets turned around. Because they can't afford to fail, they won't, is sort of the argument that people make. They have too much invested in specifically this football program. It's the same argument, frankly, that was used in favor of Miami this year by Miami fans, which was, we were never going to let you have Cam Ward. We can't afford to. Our coach was 12-13 coming into this season. They gave him a massive contract that really kind of went outside the lines of what Miami's done in the last 20 years. They haven't paid coaches like that. They haven't really been very serious about winning. They were now serious about winning. They realized their mistake, their missteps, and they wanted to win. They saw the value long-term of Miami football being good again as a university, not as an athletic department, as a university. They finally got a president and an athletic director who were like, yeah, that needs to win. There are all kinds of ancillary benefits to football winning. We need to win. What do we got to do? Well, let's go bring Mario in. Let's pay him a ton of money because he's a good recruiter and he played here, and he'll probably be able to recruit some. And when it wasn't going well, the thought was, all right, sink more money into it this year. Make it so it's impossible for that dumbass who won't take a knee to fail. Make it foolproof so that he can't possibly fail. We'll just be bigger, stronger, and faster. Can't screw that up. Run any play. We're bigger, stronger, and faster. It doesn't matter. That was the investment. That was the thought. And then that was what would allow them long-term to take advantage of the one thing that he does do very, very well, which is recruit. He does that very well. Cares about it passionately. It's like his greatest passion. So there it is. Florida State is in a similar predicament right now. When you are investing the kind of money that they are in the stadium, and you've begged people to spend gobs of money to keep their seats or be relocated or whatever it might be to upgrade their status. My father had to do that, upgraded his status as a donor, right? So you go, for some people, you just, you might be you want to be a golden chief or a silver chief or whatever, you just move on up the ladder. They asked people to do all of those things in order to keep their seats, in order to have an opportunity to choose the better seats. They asked people to be patient with them while this was going on in season. Difficult for a lot of people. It sucks. In the stadium is a lot smaller. Tickets are harder to come by. Parking's terrible. All those things. But they did invest in Mike and his staff, and they did invest that football, in this lawsuit because long-term they knew this was what was going to pay the bills, and they wanted to be on an equal playing field as those they seek to compete against, both in the state and in the region. And so they filed a lawsuit that they knew would cause a lot of stress and cost millions of dollars to try to win. And they were all in. So they have to remain all in. And that is what people would say you could look to as the most positive element of this disaster, which is they can't afford to lose. You'd rather throw in more money at a situation that you've already thrown a ton of money at because there's no going back. That money's a sunk cost. It's already been invested.
If only tuition could be raised, it's not expensive enough. Maybe they could find the money through tuition, but they would pull it. They'll pull the money from where they need to pull the money from in order to make it work. It's just that this is why you wanted to make those moves in the first place, and I'm talking about conference moves. Because you don't want to have to cut sports. Like, we just added one. Like, really? We're going to add another sport? Okay, interesting. But they will cut sports before they lose at football. Football will be the last thing standing.
They can't sustain losses long term. You can have a season like this, and it's nightmare, and they never saw this coming. Nobody did.
Football will be the last thing that goes. And so that means it's the first thing that needs to be invested in when there's a problem. So, yeah, I could see them trying to position themselves as saying, we just brought in some of the best coaching talent, coordinator talent that can be afforded on the market. Like, that would be the pitch. That's how you spin this. Is you have coordinator replacements and coaching replacements, and you say these are some of the brightest minds that are in the coaching industry that we could afford to bring in, because you're going to have to, as a booster, as a member of the athletic department, representative. You're going to have to be able to spin this thing and sell it. In about 6 weeks' time, there are going to be moves made that you're going to have to pitch and sell to get people to continue to invest.
You know what I find fascinating and that is this idea that, well, okay, let's look at it this way. Part of the problem with the business of coaching, and we see this happen a lot, is that a coach may know everything there is to know. We talk about this a lot. And then for whatever reason is not a fit in a certain region of the country or at a particular type of school, or maybe he doesn't fit with the head coach. They don't see the football world the same. They don't see eye to eye. There's no arguing his credibility as a coach and his successes at his previous stops. The argument becomes, does he fit with Mike? Does he fit in Tallahassee, Florida? Does he fit at Florida State? Has he always been a Midwest guy? Has he always been a West Coast guy? Has he always been a Northeast guy? Like these things all matter. So it's not as simple as saying, for example, I want to go get Jim Leonard, former player, former coach. Obviously, I'd like to get that guy and let him come in and do this, and this, right? Defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach. He's done a lot of things. He was a senior football analyst early on. He did a lot of things. He's in the NFL, all these things. Would it work? Does it work for him to be in Tallahassee? Is it something that Mike's got to evaluate all of that? I do think.
Well, is Dan Lanning an Oregon guy, a Pacific Northwest guy?
Right, and he's the head coach. So you're adding coordinators. They have to listen to you. But that said, along the lines of the money dictates what's going to happen. Listen, Jimmy Sexton, who seems to have under his umbrella every meaningful name in the coaching industry, and that includes many top assistants all over the country, would tell you, I'm pretty sure, that one of his prized clients financially, meaning the money he makes off of said client, is in fact Mike Norvell, whom he has certainly worked out a very, very kind deal of $10 million plus. He'd like Mike to remain employed. I mean, that pays Papa quite well. That's a client that you really want to make sure is happy. That's a client that hopefully you both have a good relationship with, because that's the kind of partnership you want to have when you're working so closely together in the same industry, or you both want to succeed, but also a client that you really like to have because you make a ton of money off of them. Let's just call it for what it is. Business is business. And if you're a guy that's coaching at Southern Miss and you're a client, you still matter. I've still made a lot of money for you, and you've made money for me. You might be getting paid $2-3 million a year currently. Can you hold on? My $11 million a year coach is on the other line. You're the guy that gets put on hold. Click. Yes, Mike. And now, to be sure, if Nick calls, well, Mike, hold on a second. Nick is calling. We get it. There's the hierarchy. But the point is, there aren't too many people that Mike gets put on hold for. And I would think that Mike would turn to an agent in a desperate situation like this and say, hey, man, you like the kind of money you get paid off of me, and I like the kind of money I make. And we're in dire straits. And you've got a lot of names and a lot of people that are elsewhere. Might they need to be here in Tallahassee?